Shh, it's okay. Please calm down.
How much longer must we endure this?
The baby's scream cut through the $500 per seat silence like a knife through silk. First-class passengers on the Sydney to Melbourne Express didn't pay premium prices to hear this. The morning sun had promised a peaceful journey, golden light streaming through polished windows, the scent of fresh espresso wafting from the service cart, leather seats that cost more than most people's monthly rent. This was supposed to be sanctuary from the chaos of economy class. Then the crying started. At first, it was barely noticeable, a soft whimper that most passengers ignored. But within 90 seconds, it escalated into full-blown hysteria. The kind of screaming that makes your teeth hurt and your soul want to evacuate your body. All eyes turned to the source. Near the window sat Amelia Rourke, tech billionaire heiress, Forbes under 30, owner of Rourke Enterprises, a woman who controlled boardrooms across 3 continents. Her Chanel coat hung open, designer blouse rumpled, perfectly styled hair now falling across her face in dark, disheveled strands. Her hands trembled as she bounced her 6-month-old baby, rocking desperately, whispering frantic lullabies that went nowhere. The baby screamed louder. Red-faced. Veins bulging. Tiny fists clenched in rage at the universe. Can't she control that thing? A hedge fund manager muttered from across the aisle, yanking on $400 noise-canceling headphones. A woman dripping in Cartier diamonds, 3 rings per hand, earrings that could fund a small hospital, rolled her eyes so hard they nearly left orbit. Typical new money. All billions, no breeding. Another passenger snapped his newspaper with theatrical irritation. Someone sighed loud enough to be heard in economy. Amelia felt every stare like a physical blow. She'd faced hostile shareholders, navigated corporate takeovers, stared down men twice her age who thought she'd inherited her empire rather than rebuilt it from her father's ashes. But this? A screaming baby she couldn't soothe? This was breaking her. "Please baby stop please," she whispered, voice cracking. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. "Not here. Not in front of these vultures." The baby screamed louder, as if sensing her desperation and feeding on it. That's when she felt someone standing beside her. She looked up through tear-blurred vision. A boy stood there, maybe 12 years old, dark-skinned with soft brown eyes that seemed too old for his face. He wore a faded grey hoodie with holes at the elbows, jeans torn at the knees, not fashion-torn, actually worn through, and sneakers held together by duct tape and prayers. In his arms, he clutched a canvas bag like it contained everything he owned. He absolutely did not belong in first class. "Ma'am," he said quietly, respectfully. His voice had a gentle accent, something Aboriginal mixed with suburban Australian. "Can I try something?" The carriage went silent, the kind of silence that comes before either a miracle or a spectacular disaster. Amelia blinked, confused, exhausted. "I'm sorry, what? For your baby?" He gestured toward the screaming infant with a small, weathered hand. "I think I can help." A few passengers snorted. The hedge fund guy actually laughed out loud. "Oh, this ought to be good," someone whispered behind a hand. "Street kids gonna give parenting advice to a billionaire." The Cartier woman leaned to her companion, probably trying to get close enough to steal something. Security should have kept him out. But Amelia barely heard them. She was staring at the boy's eyes, deep, calm, certain. Like still water. Like someone who'd seen things that aged you in ways time couldn't measure. Desperation makes you say yes to crazy things. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, try." The boy nodded once, then unzipped his canvas bag. Time seemed to slow. The morning light streaming through the window shifted, catching dust motes that hung suspended like tiny stars. Every passenger, even the hostile ones, craned their necks to see what this ragged kid was pulling out. A wooden flute emerged from the bag. Not new. Not expensive. Hand-carved from dark wood, worn smooth by countless touches, with grooves where fingers had pressed against it so many times they'd left permanent indentations. It looked ancient. Sacred. Like an artifact that belonged in a museum, not the hands of a homeless-looking boy on a train. He held it reverently, the way you'd hold something that contained a piece of your soul. Then he raised it to his lips. The first note silenced the world. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was barely more than a whisper, soft as wind through autumn leaves, gentle as rain on still water. But somehow, that single note reached every corner of the carriage. It filled the space not with sound, but with presence. The baby's scream faltered, hiccuped, caught in its tiny throat. Another note followed, longer, clearer, rising like dawn breaking over mountains. Then another. And another. A melody older than cities, older than trains, older than the very concept of first class and economy. The baby stopped crying. Just like that. Mid-scream to silence in 3 seconds flat. But the boy kept playing. The melody swirled through the carriage like morning mist, wrapping around every passenger, every seat, every breath. It wasn't just music. It was medicine. Each note seemed to reach inside your chest and unknot something you didn't know was tangled. Decades of stress. Years of anger. Lifetimes of small cruelties you'd committed and received. Enjoying the story? Please like, subscribe, share and let me know where you are watching from. The hedge fund manager's hands went slack. His newspaper slipped to the floor, forgotten. His eyes, hard eyes that had seen 1,000 deals, crushed 100 competitors, were suddenly wet. The Cartier woman's perfectly painted lips trembled. One hand rose unconsciously to her chest, fingers pressing against her heart like she was trying to hold something in. The man with the newspaper didn't snap it once. He just stared, transfixed, as tears rolled down his weathered cheeks. Grown adults were crying over a child's flute. Outside, the Australian countryside blurred past. Golden fields of wheat, eucalyptus forests breathing in the morning sun, small towns that looked like postcards from a simpler time. But no one looked away from the boy. No one could. How? She could barely form words. How did you do that? The boy looked down at the flute, turning it slowly in his small, calloused hands. His face carried an expression too heavy for someone so young, the kind of sadness that lives in bones, not skin. My mum used to play for sick babies, he said quietly. At St. Gabriel's Hospital. The cancer ward, mostly. Kids who couldn't sleep through the pain. He traced one groove in the wood with his thumb. She said music fills hearts that are breaking. Makes the world quieter. Used to. The entire carriage felt the weight of those 2 words. Where is she now? Amelia whispered, though part of her already knew the answer. The boy's grip tightened on the flute. His jaw worked silently for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Gone. 6 months ago. Lung cancer. Never smoked a day in her life, the doctors said. She was just unlucky. Someone behind them gasped softly. The hedge fund manager turned away abruptly, suddenly fascinated by the passing landscape. The Cartier woman pulled out a handkerchief, real linen, monogrammed, and pressed it to her eyes. I'm sorry, Amelia breathed. I'm so sorry. The boy shrugged, not callously, but with the exhausted acceptance of someone who'd heard those words 1,000 times and knew they changed nothing. I'm going to Melbourne, he continued, almost mechanically, like he'd said this speech before. To my Aunt Kira's. She's got a flat in Footscray. Mum wanted me to keep playing. Said the music can't die just because she did. Said it was bigger than both of us. Every adult in that carriage suddenly felt very, very small. Amelia fumbled for her Hermes handbag with trembling hands, nearly dropping her sleeping baby in the process. She pulled out a fat stack of $100 bills, easily $5,000, maybe more. Autopilot. That's what rich people do when they don't know what else to offer. Money. Always money. Please, she said, holding it out. Let me give you something. For your gift. For what you just. No. The word was gentle but absolute. The boy pushed the money away like it was nothing. Like $5,000 meant less than air. I don't want money, ma'am. His eyes met hers, clear, honest, unwavering. Just tell your baby sweet dreams for me. That's enough. The stack of bills, probably more than his aunt made in 3 months, hung there between them like an insult. Around them, passengers shifted uncomfortably. The hedge fund manager stared at his Rolex like it had betrayed him. The Cartier woman looked at her rings, 6 figures worth of diamonds, and for the first time in decades felt poor. The train speakers crackled to life, now approaching Albury. Albury Station, 5 minutes. Sunlight flooded the carriage as they slowed, turning everything golden. The boy carefully, reverently wrapped the flute back in its cloth and tucked it into his canvas bag. He stood, shouldering the bag with practiced ease. Wait. Amelia stood so fast she nearly dropped her sleeping baby. The boy turned, patient. She wasn't holding money this time. In her trembling hand was an embossed business card, cream-colored, elegant, expensive. "My foundation," she said, voice shaking. "We fund young musicians, artists, people with gifts like yours." She held it out like an offering at an altar. "I want to help you. Please. Let me do something." The boy studied the card. Then her face. Then the card again. For a long moment, he said nothing. "I'll think about it," he finally said. He took the card, slipped it into his pocket, and gave her a small nod, the kind that carries more respect than 1,000 bows. And just like that, he was gone. The carriage watched through the windows as his small figure disappeared into the Albury Station crowd, another anonymous kid with a worn bag and impossible talent. The kind the world overlooks 1,000,000 times a day. The kind who changes everything without ever asking for anything in return. The train lurched, wheels grinding, and began rolling again. The hedge fund manager was the first to speak. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, voice hoarse. "That was... I don't even..." He couldn't finish. No one could. The Cartier woman was quietly crying, mascara running down her surgically perfected cheeks. "I called him a thief," she whispered to no one in particular. "I thought he was going to steal from us." The man with the newspaper folded it slowly, deliberately, and set it aside. He pulled out his phone and stared at it for a long moment before typing, "Sarah, it's Dad. I know we haven't talked in 3 years. I'm sorry. I love you. Can we try again?" Amelia sank into her seat, holding her sleeping baby. Through the window, she caught one last glimpse of him, walking alone down the platform, morning light catching the edge of his canvas bag, shoulders straight despite carrying the weight of loss. He didn't look back. She looked down at her baby, peaceful, perfect, dreaming whatever babies dream, and whispered, "One day when you're old enough, I'll tell you about the boy on the train. The one who had nothing but gave us everything. The one who taught me what money can't buy." The train continued south, carrying its passengers toward Melbourne. But everything had changed. The air felt different, lighter. Like a window had been opened in a room that had been sealed shut for years. 3 weeks later, the video appeared online. Someone, no one knew who, had filmed the whole thing on their phone. The screaming baby. The ragged boy. The impossible flute. The silence that followed. 72 seconds of shaky footage that looked like it was shot on a potato. It was raw, unedited, real. A marketing student in Perth uploaded it to TikTok at 3 a.m. By 6 a.m., 400,000 views. By noon, 23 million. By midnight, 287 million. The algorithm gods smiled. The video exploded across every platform simultaneously: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. It transcended borders, languages, cultures. A grandmother in Tokyo watched it and wept. A teenager in Lagos shared it with his entire school. A war correspondent in Kiev played it in a bomb shelter, and for 3 minutes, everyone forgot to be afraid. By day 3, 2.8 billion views. The comments section became a digital pilgrimage site. "I'm a 47-year-old construction worker crying in my truck. That boy has more grace than I'll ever achieve in my entire life. I've watched this 11 times and I still can't breathe. The way he refused money. I'm not okay, I'll never be okay. This child is what humanity should be." News outlets around the world picked it up. The BBC ran a special segment. CNN brought in child psychologists and music therapists to explain what they'd witnessed. Al Jazeera did a 20-minute feature. The Guardian's headline, "The $4.2 billion Heiress and the Orphan, How One Train Encounter Shattered the Internet." Amelia Rourke's foundation received 43,000 applications in 1 week. From young musicians who'd been busking on street corners, dancers who practiced in parking garages because they couldn't afford studios, artists who painted on cardboard because canvas cost too much, poets, singers, dreamers who'd been invisible their whole lives. Amelia funded them all. Every single one. She liquidated stocks, restructured her entire foundation, and wrote checks until her hand cramped. "Find them all," she told her staff. "I don't care what it costs." But no one could find the boy. Malik, they learned his name from the aunt in Footscray who'd seen the video and recognized her nephew, had vanished into Melbourne's sprawl like smoke. No social media. No phone number. No trail. Just whispers and urban legends. Someone swore they saw him playing near Flinders Street Station, hat out for coins he never collected. A nurse at the Royal Children's Hospital claimed she heard his flute in the cancer ward at 3 a.m., but when she went to investigate, the hallway was empty. A homeless man in St Kilda said the boy played for him once, when he was contemplating walking into the ocean and not coming back. "That music," the man told a reporter, "saved my life." The flute, they said, still played for the broken. Amelia never stopped looking. She hired investigators, offered rewards, put up billboards. Nothing. It was like he'd never existed, except for that 72 seconds of video that continued to spread like gospel. 6 months later, on a rainy Tuesday night, Amelia's doorbell rang. She opened it to find a small package on her doorstep. No return address. Inside, wrapped in the same faded cloth she remembered from the train, was a note. "Dear Ms. Rourke, thank you for your kindness. I thought about your offer for a long time. I'm not ready for foundations or fame or any of that yet. But I wanted you to know, your baby's peaceful face that day reminded me why Mum loved playing. Why the music matters. Keep helping those kids. They need you more than I do. The world's got enough noise. We need more quiet. M." Beneath the note was a photograph. Malik, standing in front of a small music school in Footscray, holding his flute, smiling. Really smiling, the kind that reaches your eyes. Amelia pressed the photo to her chest and cried. Not sad tears. Not quite happy ones either. Something in between. Something that felt like forgiveness and gratitude and hope all tangled together. And somewhere in Melbourne, late at night when the world goes quiet, if you listen carefully, if you still your breath and open your heart, you might hear it. A wooden flute. A melody older than memory. The sound of peace being carried through the dark. Because Malik didn't just play music. He reminded a broken world what it had forgotten. That grace isn't expensive, it's free. That the things money can't buy are the only things that matter. That sometimes the smallest people carry the biggest light. That peace isn't found. It's given. By those who have every reason to withhold it and choose not to. And those who heard him never, ever forgot. Tag someone who needs to remember what really matters. This story doesn't end here. It continues with everyone who watches it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Remember to like, subscribe and turn on notification for the next story.